Hello and welcome back to the GB Fantasy Football channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at form versus fixtures, how a pre-season lines up versus potentially attacking those best fixture rotations towards the start of the season. Now, before I actually do get on with the video, I'd like to thank you all once again for the support on the channel. It has really taken me by surprise. I initially did this as just an extra hobby of sorts. I enjoy speaking about football and all things fantasy football related. So just to put my thoughts out on the internet and get such great feedback from all of you has been really, really nice to hear. If you could drop a thumbs up and get those notifications out to people on the video, that would be fantastic. Do hit the subscribe button as well. We're approaching 500. We've passed the 450 mark now. If we could get there, that would be fantastic. Without further ado, let's crack on with the video. So before I go into a few fixture rotations that may or may not be potentially the best options going into the start of the season, I'd just like to look at a few players' form in pre-season, that is. Of course, we're not quite at the big start of the season. We're not quite kicking off the campaign. So it's interesting to see how teams are balancing up minutes versus potential performances. Now, notable players that aren't quite up to speed yet. Of course, Chelsea and Manchester City, they finished their campaign quite late. The Club World Cup ran, I think, into what was it, July time. So they're not back into pre-season at all yet. They've only got a couple of games at most. So players like Cole Palmer, Cucurella, Aït-Nouri, Erling Haaland, all your big hitters from those teams haven't yet kicked a ball in pre-season. So it'd be interesting to see if their campaign is blighted by it or if it's just a continuation from last season. Some other players to note, of course, Mohamed Salah has played a few games for Liverpool now. He's not exactly lit the world on fire. Now, it's one to notice at the start of last season in pre-season, he was out wide, and it's the saying, Salah's out wide, he's not getting involved. And look how his numbers actually finished in the 24-25 campaign. He nearly broke all sorts of records. He certainly did in fantasy points. But with the new system that Arne Slot's got going on, might just be pre-season, but currently that 14.5 million, despite me personally still probably going for him, it's leaning a lot of people towards potentially thinking, is that zero point 0.5 saving and getting Erling Haaland into the team, maybe reshaping things worthwhile? Maybe Florian Wirtz could cover him. Not too sure currently, but it's definitely one to watch out for. Other players with notable cracking performances in pre-season. Harry Wilson of Fulham, 5 goals and an assist. These players are well worth noting, especially when it comes to the rotations later on in the video. There's a reason I've picked these players out. They're clearly in decent form, and with only what is it now, 4 weeks until the start of the season. It's worth noting how well these players are indeed playing under their managers. We've got Mateta from Crystal Palace, 2 goals and an assist. I'd also throw Eze into the mix. He's only probably played, I think it's two halves in separate games, maybe a little bit more, but he's looking really fresh. Apparently, his release clause in his contract expired the day of recording this, which would be the 31st of July. I think he will stay at Crystal Palace unless Arsenal come in with an incredible bid. I know Trossard got injured against Tottenham today, so it's one to look out for. On an Arsenal note, I think they've been awful in pre-season. They've really not shown any level of creativity at all, and I actually do think the defence is massively hindered by not having Gabriel or Timber. According to Arteta, they will be in the starting 11 more than likely for the opening day away to Manchester United. But how much you can truly rely on Arteta's word is up to personal interpretation. He's lied many times, so I won't really gamble on them too. You then got Danny Welbeck, who scored 4 goals in pre-season now. He is an asset who normally tends to do really well. He's never someone who breaks out and scores you 10, 15, 20 goals a season. He might push towards the low end of the 10, the double digits, but injuries take their toll throughout the campaign. He's never been a player who has exactly stayed fit for 38 games. Remember his time at Arsenal, he basically fell apart every season. But he has and always will be a great Premier League striker asset. He knows where the back of the net is. He knows how to score. And he might actually be on penalties this season with you've got João Pedro, who's moved on to Chelsea. I'm not sure if there's anyone else in that Brighton team who are going to take the role from him. So that's one to look out for. And the last one of note that I've really penciled in is Marlon of Aston Villa. Now, I believe he's 5.5 million. He's reclassified this season from an attacker to a midfielder, which makes him even better to pick from. Now, the 3 assists, I believe he's playing on the right. And from what I gather, he's on the right. You've got Rodgers in the number 10 position and Jacob Ramsey on the left, if I'm not wrong. Do correct me down in the comments down below, any of you who've watched Villa over pre-season thoroughly. I can't say I've seen their minutes. I do know that Morgan Rodgers and Ollie Watkins are starring in pre-season. I think they've got a goal and an assist each in 2 games. So well worth their money on that front. But Marlon at 5.5 million, definitely one to look out for. The first set of rotational fixtures that I've gone for in today's video is Sunderland and Newcastle. Now, there's always a set of teams within the Premier League who aren't allowed to play at the same time at home within a game week. I believe Arsenal, Tottenham's one of them, Sunderland, Newcastle, and I believe for some reason West Ham and maybe a Brighton, that was ringing a bell, aren't allowed to play at home in the same weekend due to policing reasons. I think Leeds and Man United are another one. Man City, Man United. Any rivalries that you can remember or know that play in the same vicinity tend to be the case. I think Fulham and Chelsea being another. So Sunderland and Newcastle really do slot in quite well with each other. Now, the graphic on the screen should be laid out in a manner that shows both teams' fixtures and the positive influence that they have on each other. So, for example, Sunderland Newcastle, the first set of 6 game weeks consist of West Ham at home, Burnley away, Leeds away, Wolves at home, and then either Aston Villa or Bournemouth. That's down to personal preference. Now, these fixtures are mainly for defensive reasons. I'll get to the attacking rotations after the first set of 3 defensive ones, but the first set of 3 are defensive rotational fixtures. Now, Sunderland have some really good £4 million defensive assets. I believe Ronaldo, you'll know him, is about 9% owned, 4 million, really good asset. Newcastle, on the other hand, I've got a few 5 million ones that are semi-decent. Livramento springing to mind. They've not been great in pre-season. Of course, their transfer window hasn't exactly gone to plan. Isak's gone AWOL. They're looking a little bit rudderless at the minute, and they've not got any defenders through the door of note. Yes, they've got Anthony Elanga up front, but he was kind of a necessity after how light there was last season, and especially with Callum Wilson going through the door. So defensively, perhaps Newcastle can be got at. I think for some reason, did Villa beat them 5-1 on the opening day? Or I think Newcastle might have beat Villa 5-1. For some reason, that's springing to mind as an opening day fixture. I think it might be Newcastle that beat Villa, actually. But Newcastle are potentially there for defensive-wise. Can they pick up where they left off a few seasons ago with Trippier scoring loads of points? I'm not sure. But Sunderland and Newcastle are the first set of fixtures up. I'll put the second and third set of fixtures in this bracket of video. That'll be Forest and Fulham and Crystal Palace West Ham. Now, first up is Forest and Fulham. The first 6 fixtures that you'll get from rotating defenders in these teams are as follows. You'll get Brentford at home, Man United at home, West Ham at home, Leeds at home, then either Brentford at home or Burnley away. So you'd either get 6 fixtures, 6 home fixtures that is, or 5 home fixtures and a favourable away fixture away to Burnley. Now, I really, really like these rotations. I think Robinson is either 5 or 5.5 million at Fulham. Fantastic asset last season. Potential to be rotated as well with some Forest assets if you want. Personally, I will be targeting Forest assets in my own draft, whether that will be Matt Sells in goal or Nico Williams is a 5 million defender. Oleina, I believe it is, currently facing some fitness issues at fullback. If you can eke out that extra 0.5, Milenkovic and Murillo are really good for your DEFCON points, your defending assets, the extra points that you get this season, the extra 2 per game. Personally, I don't feel like you really need to be rotating your £5.5 million defensive assets. I think they lean more towards premium than rotation-esque players. So for Fulham as well, I think Joachim Andersen might be in that bracket. Maybe Kenny Tete, is he 4.5 or 5 million? One to look out for, especially on that front. And as I said, the second set is Crystal Palace and West Ham. For these, you get Sunderland away, Nottingham Forest at home, Forest away, Sunderland at home, and then they play each other in that fifth fixture. Personally, I feel like these are some decent fixtures. Yes, Forest aren't incredible attacking wise. Chris Wood shoulders a lot of the goals. He carries a lot of the baggage on that front, especially with Gibbs White. Yes, he's still there, but does he really want to actually be there? If you've seen any of the social media stuff, you'll know full well what I mean on that one. Alanga's now gone, so Hudson-Odoi's got a lot more to do. Igor Jesus might be a potential decent signing for Forest, but can I see him making an immediate impact? Not too sure. Forest only scored, I think it was 40 or 50 goals ish last season. I think it was 50 odd. But once again, Chris Wood outscored his expected goals massively. Can you target that Forest attack clean sheet wise? I think so. Of course, Sunderland, they're decent. They've signed quite a few good players, Granit Xhaka being one of them, got a Dinger being another, but they are a newly promoted team. And if we're going to take them with a pinch of salt before we get to see them in action, you will be targeting those newly promoted teams. I think there's quite a few defensive clean sheets to be had between them three sets of rotations. If you know any better ones, do leave it in the comments down below, or if any of them are springing out to you. Let's crack on with the attacking ones. The first set of rotating attacking fixtures I'm looking to target in the first 5 game weeks are West Ham and Wolves. These are, of course, budget options. These are players less than 7.5 million. I think for any asset above 8 million, either in attack or midfield, you are looking to play them pretty much every week. Of course, there'll be a few instances like an Arsenal away, a Liverpool away, Man City away, where you might look at your cheaper option and say, can he outscore my premium player in that position? But normally that isn't the case. So for West Ham and Wolves, I think Fulkrug, if you can't quite afford Jarrod Bowen, Fulkrug's look quite decent in pre-season. And of course, Wolves got quite a few decent assets. They've got a new Adias, £5.5 million midfielder, looking to play right wing. Did decent in the Club World Cup. And of course, you've got Strand Larson, another attacker who will potentially be on penalties this season with Cunha leaving. Their fixtures are Sunderland away, Chelsea at home, Everton at home, Tottenham at home, and Leeds at home. 4 home fixtures out the first 5, with a Sunderland away fixture as well, with the opening game that is for West Ham. I do feel like there's a lot of point potential there. Yes, you could go for your Jarrod Bowen, as I said, if your budget gets there. Personally, I do feel like he's a really good asset. But if you're thinking about putting that £100 million elsewhere, I feel like the midfield options for Wolves and West Ham, I think Paqueta has just been cleared of his betting, whatever he had going on in the background there. So he's one to look out for. Of course, Kudos has gone to Tottenham now, so he's not quite the West Ham asset of yesteryear. One to look out for at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, though. But those midfield options and attacking options do offer a lot of upside. Last 2 rotations for today's video are Brentford and Fulham, and Everton and Bournemouth. I'll try to stay away from your big hitters in this video, your Arsenals, your Liverpool, your City, your Newcastle, your European teams basically, because we don't quite know where they're going to be. Of course, Crystal Palace are in there. If they're in the Conference League or the Europa League, I feel like, especially in the opening group fixtures, they tend to rotate a lot. I mean, if you watch Chelsea last season in the Conference League, they basically had 2 starting 11s throughout the entire competition. So it's mainly the Champions League teams that I've tried to avoid. But Brentford, Fulham, their first 5 are as follows: Brighton away, Manchester United at home, Sunderland away, Leeds at home, and then they play each other in the 5th fixture. So that's one to obviously you decide, do you want to target the home team in that one, or do you feel like the form of the away team is better? Now, Brighton, quality going forward, but you do always feel like you can get at them defensively. Probably got Lewis Dunk at the back with Van Heck. Maybe the Kuiper, I know he's a very popular asset in all fantasy formats at the minute. Maybe potentially a fullback or a wing back in that Brighton system, and always that right back position seems to be a little bit wary. Of course, Man United, they are looking better in pre-season. I will give them that. But if you're going to target a team from last season without any nailed on results for this campaign coming up, you will target teams in the bottom half, and Manchester United were one of them. They haven't signed any defenders that I know of. Maybe a left wing back who's a bit of a youth prospect, maybe coming into the first team, but they've not signed any brand new goalkeeper like a Donnarumma yet, or any centre half. So there's still one to look out for attacking their back 4 or back 5 wise. Sunderland, of course, speaks for itself. Leeds speaks for itself. Promoted teams with teams in the bottom half. What more can you ask for on that front? And then, of course, Everton, Bournemouth. Everton, they've got a few attacking assets of note. Of course, Ndai, 6.5 million. A lot of people have gone there, potentially on penalties. But even David Moyes has come out and said in pre-season, Everton have been pretty woeful attacking wise. They've not shown anything like he wants, and I think he's actually getting on at the board as well. Signings haven't come through the door. Yes, they're going into a new stadium as well, which is always a difficult transition. As an Arsenal fan, we went from Highbury in 2006 to the Emirates. Wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. So I can assume with Everton and Goodison Park, everything that it had, the crowded atmosphere, just the ferocity every time you walk down that tunnel. Would he have that the same at their new ground? I'm not sure. But attacking wise, they've got Barry and Beto. If you can pick which one out of the two of them is going to start, fantastic. That's the problem though. And that's why currently this is probably the weakest one out of the three rotations. Bournemouth, yes, their entire back four pretty much has been ransacked by every team across Europe. Goalkeeper's gone. But crucially, their attack is still in play. They've got Semenyo, they've got Ryan Christie, he's knocking about a little bit. They've got Cliver, and of course they've got Evan Nielsen. Let's go Evan Nielsen up front, who had a stellar debut campaign last season on penalties, occasionally with Cliver. So it's one to look out for on that front. The fixtures are Leeds away, Wolves at home, Wolves away, Brighton at home, and Newcastle at home. Now, as a set of five, if you're targeting them defensively, I think they're quite decent. Of course, the double Wolves fixtures with Aït-Nouri gone, are they still going to be the same defensively as there was last season? Are they going to be worse? I mean, there wasn't exactly great last campaign, so to target them is pretty decent. Leeds, promoted team. Yes, they're signing giants. I think each one of their signings this pre-season has been over 6 foot, so they're clearly targeting a more physical team. Can it keep them up? Can they follow that Brentford mould from a few years back and then build on it? It's still yet to be seen. And of course, Brighton and Newcastle, as previously mentioned, decent teams going forward, but have the potential to concede goals at the back. Now, with the midfield options of Bournemouth and Everton, and of course the centre forwards, do you feel like these are rotations that you will be taking up in your team, or do you see a more premium asset with a bog standard placeholder of a £4.5 or £5 million player taking the role instead? And unfortunately, that does conclude today's video. They are my early pre-season thoughts with regards to any players that might have snuck into my thoughts, and of course those rotations both for defensive assets and attacking assets. Now, I am very much enjoying a few players coming through the door across the teams across the Premier League, i.e. Granit Xhaka, 5 million, very much opening up a lot of options for us. And I think it's Gui from Chelsea going to Sunderland, a £4.5 million striker. Might have potentially changed my draft up substantially, going from a 3-4-3 to a 3-5-2. So I'll be intrigued to see if any of the most recent transfers, anyone's form in pre-season, or any of these rotations have changed your drafts. So do leave a comment down below if that is the case. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, that'd be greatly appreciated, and hit that subscribe button as well. There's plenty more content along the way and coming up in the near future, both for FPL and Sun Dream Team. So keep your eyes peeled on that front. All my socials are in the description below. We've got Instagram, TikTok, and X, all the good stuff. So please do go check it out. And that's it, I'm afraid. There is a code in the description below for my Sun Dream Team League if any of you play that as well as FPL. So do go join that. Lots of fun over there as well. So thank you very much for watching, and you'll be seeing me in a new video very soon.